Rain poured like shards of glass across the city, the wind whipping through the streets, rattling signs and bouncing puddles onto the sidewalk. Inside the hospital, Amara Voss sprinted down the ICU corridor, her boots slapping against the wet tile, breath shallow but determined. 7 months pregnant, her belly swung slightly with every step. Yet she moved with purpose, her mind a flurry of monitors, alarms, and lives she couldn't afford to lose. Move him. Now. I don't care who's in that bed. The words tore through the rhythmic chaos of the ward. Amara skidded to a stop and turned to see a sharply dressed man leaning over a gurney, his assistant writhing lightly, a thin trickle of blood staining her sleeve. Darius Cade, billionaire tech mogul, hospital donor, and self-proclaimed authority over everyone and everything, glared at her. "This patient is critical," Amara said, her voice steady but tinged with steel. "No one moves anyone until it's safe. I won't compromise care for a minor injury." Darius's eyes flashed. "Minor injury? She's my assistant. She goes first. Move them." Amara rested a protective hand on her belly. "No. That's not up for discussion." The room went quiet. Nurses and orderlies froze, some holding their breath. Then Darius's hand lashed out. The slap struck her cheek with a crack that echoed louder than any monitor alarm. Amara staggered back, touching her face, her heart thundering as shock and anger collided in her chest. You can't," she whispered, disbelief shaking her voice. "Watch me," Darius said, stepping closer, the menace radiating off him like heat. Dr. Roland Pierce, the hospital's chief of medicine, appeared at the end of the hall, eyes scanning the scene. For a brief moment he seemed to register the injustice, the violation, the audacity, but only briefly. "Amara, you're terminated. Effective immediately," he said, voice flat, void of judgment or support. The room felt as if it had constricted around her. Colleagues avoided her gaze. Silence screamed betrayal. Her world tilted on its axis. She had lost more than her job. She had lost her sanctuary, her dignity, her sense of safety. Outside, rain plastered her hair to her face, drenched her coat. She barely noticed. Every step to her car felt heavy, echoing her isolation. At her apartment she tried her bank account. Frozen. Legal notices piled in her inbox. Lawsuits accusing her of professional misconduct. Calls went unanswered. Doors slammed shut. Every connection she had vanished overnight. "How did saying no ruin everything?" she whispered to the empty room. Her thumb hovered over a familiar contact. Riven, Hale, her foster brother. The man whose reputation alone could inspire fear, whose movements were unseen yet unstoppable. She hesitated, swallowed her pride and fear, then pressed dial. The line rang twice. Then, "You never call unless it matters," Riven said, calm and precise. I think I made a powerful enemy," she admitted, voice quivering. A pause. Then a low chuckle. "No, he made one." Amara didn't yet understand, but she felt the gravity of the words. Everything was about to change. Within hours, Riven was at work. Darius's empire, vast but brittle, began to crack. Accounts flagged themselves, investments evaporated, private servers leaked damning information, and his allies began disappearing in quiet fear. He could no longer control the chaos. Meanwhile, Amara noticed subtle changes around her apartment. Rent paid. Groceries delivered. Anonymous messages reminding her to rest, assuring her of medical care. Small gestures, nearly invisible, but they whispered safety. She wasn't alone. Darius noticed first in a board meeting. Investors exchanged uneasy glances. Phones failed. Emails bounced. Whispers slid across polished tables like ice. Panic replaced arrogance in his eyes. "I built this empire with my own hands," he snapped, pounding the table. "Nobody can take it from me." Riven had already taken it. Quietly, methodically, without a sound. The days that followed escalated the conflict. Darius attempted to manipulate media contacts, politicians, and legal channels, but every effort failed. Every ally he leaned on vanished, and each disappearance brought him closer to panic. Back at the hospital, Amara struggled with fear and anger. She replayed the slap, the indifference of Dr. Pierce, the betrayal of colleagues who had remained silent. But she also felt a glimmer of hope. Riven had stepped in. The tide was turning. Then came the near miss. Darius, desperate, attempted to flee the country aboard a private jet. But mid-taxi the engines failed. Men appeared from the shadows, silent, precise. He was restrained, powerless, every bit of arrogance stripped away. Hours later, he woke in a dimly lit room. Multiple screens surrounded him, displaying the collapse of his empire. At the center was Riven, calm, unyielding. The first screen showed the slap. Amara's face, her shock, her pain, unassailable and raw. "You hit her while she was carrying life," Riven said. I can pay," Darius stammered. "You already have," Riven interrupted. "Everything you own has been seized, redistributed. Your empire gone. Your allies vanished. Authorities alerted. Sirens wailed in the distance." Darius's face went pale. Every avenue closed. Every plan dissolved. Every threat neutralized before it could manifest. The story of Darius's fall wasn't immediate. There were escalations, crises, near misses. He attempted to manipulate social media, smear campaigns against Amara, and hire fixers. Every attempt failed spectacularly. Banks rejected him. Lawyers refused to work with him. And every public statement was undermined by the leaks Riven had strategically placed. Amara's life, meanwhile, slowly regained stability. The hospital board, previously corrupt, began to shift. Dr. Pierce resigned. Nurses and staff who had turned blind eyes were removed or demoted. Amara was offered her job back, but on her terms, with safety and authority restored. Weeks later, she walked through the hospital corridors again, pregnant belly full of hope. She smiled at familiar faces, acknowledged colleagues who had doubted her, and prepared for the day that would bring the ultimate reward. Finally, she held her daughter, the room bathed in soft sunlight, the baby's tiny hand wrapped around her finger, grounding her in a joy she had almost forgotten. Riven remained quietly in the background, shadow among light. "You didn't have to do all that," Amara said softly. "Yes, I did," he replied, faint smirk crossing his face. The world outside moved on, unaware of the unseen justice delivered, the balance restored. Amara realized that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits, precise, patient, unstoppable. Her daughter stirred in her arms. Amara whispered, "Some battles aren't fought loudly. Some justice isn't seen coming. But when it arrives, it changes everything. If you've ever faced someone trying to break you, remember this. Strength doesn't always show itself in power. Sometimes it comes quietly, invisibly, yet leaves the world forever changed." And if this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because tales of courage, resilience, and unstoppable power deserve to be shared.